This video lays out a complete recovery plan for limerence, a state of profound romantic infatuation. It's based on my own personal experience of overcoming limerence using principles from neuroscience and psychology, a decade of work refining and improving those techniques with over 700 students on my emergency deprogramming course, and the personal testimony of the hundreds of thousands of limerents who visit the Living with Limerence site every year. The plan is designed to get you out of the altered state of mind of involuntary romantic obsession so you can start to build a better future. It gets you from being completely at the mercy of these super strong emotions to the advice here works, I feel better than I have in years. Hi, my name is Tom Bellamy and I'm an academic neuroscientist and a writer. For 25 years I researched the fundamental mechanisms of the brain, and for the last decade I've been studying and writing about limerence. I'm also the author of the book Smitten, which explains how neuroscience can help us make sense of limerence. Okay, so this is a long video. There's a lot to cover, and I'm going to start with a disclaimer. Recovery from limerence happens at two levels. The first is getting out of the altered state of mind of romantic infatuation. So limerence really feels like a different operational mode of the brain. You're in limerence and you need to get out so that you can think straight and make better decisions and start to recover some emotional stability. The second level for recovery is much more personal, much more variable and slow and deep. And it's about understanding how your personal history has shaped your individual limerent vulnerabilities and your romantic preferences. That second level is the realm of personal therapy and how your childhood and adolescent bonding experiences have contributed to the kinds of people and the kind of triggers that cause limerence for you. So you can think about those two levels as the universal features of limerence that are really about the fundamental brain mechanisms and behavioral psychology, and the personal features of how limerence manifests for you as a unique individual, how you respond to the onset of limerence and how you make sense of it. So this plan focuses on that first level, how brains work, how habits form, and how we can reverse them. And it's all about shifting out of that altered state of mind. So it's not a substitute for therapy. It's a practical plan for turning down the volume on your obsession. Let's get started. Limerence is an altered state of mind, and it's a drive to form a romantic pair bond with another person who seems almost impossibly attractive. Now, at first, limerence feels amazing. There are few experiences in life as exhilarating, intoxicating, and euphoric as the early stages of limerence. Life seems more vibrant and exciting. It's easy to be optimistic, all because this wonderful other person is in the world being all sparkly and dazzling. And that natural high is addictive. And that's why limerence can go wrong. If you're able to form a healthy bond with your limerent object, your LO, the object of your infatuation, then limerence can be a prelude to a more lasting form of love. But if you're not able to form a bond with them, things can take a darker turn. Limerence is well described as addiction to another person. And just as for other addictions, those early highs are intoxicating and pleasurable and thrilling, but they don't last. Over time, the reward systems of the brain learn how desirable the limerent object has become, and they push you to seek them ever more urgently. So the wanting drive of dopamine reward signaling ramps up in the brain to the level of a craving, and your ability to manage that craving decreases. The strength of connections in the brain systems regulating reward-seeking behavior literally change. So you want them with a relentless desire, a desire that's consuming and can last long after the giddy thrills of early limerence have passed. You can't stop thinking about them. You can't concentrate on other things. You want them more than you want anything else. It becomes an involuntary obsession that you cannot control. My life now feels empty, and I'm struggling to remember who I was before this obsession began. And also, if I'm honest, don't want to let go of the obsession, even after knowing how much damage it has done. My biggest mistake was thinking I had this limerence under control, that I could handle and wrestle my feelings into a neat little box called friendship. By the time I realised I was in serious trouble, my limerence was out of control and it was too late. I was hooked on the limerent object and couldn't let go. I'm still struggling daily and simply want the thoughts of LO to end. I know the rationale behind it all, but when I wake up in the morning, the perpetual humming thoughts begin, and they affect my whole disposition. There are lots of reasons why limerence can progress to this intense stage of person addiction. Lots of circumstances in life that can lead you into the trap. But fundamentally, they all boil down to a killer combination of hope and uncertainty. Limerence deepens when you cannot, for one reason or another, act openly and decisively to form a healthy romantic relationship. So common scenarios are things like uncertainty about how your limerent object feels about you, professional, personal, or social barriers to the free expression of your feelings, mixed messages from the limerent object that leave you confused, fear of losing a friendship with the limerent object if you declare your feelings and it changes the dynamic fundamentally. If your limerent object is married, if you are married, perhaps you know the limerent object is unsuitable, but you still want them anyway, or you're in a situationship with your limerent object and you don't know what they want. Maybe your limerent object is an ex-partner that you want back, or your limerent object treats you badly, but you feel trapped and you can't give them up. Or maybe your limerent object has a different sexuality to you. So these are just a few of the many reasons why hope and uncertainty might combine to worsen limerence. There's lots of ways that limerence can manifest itself, but those key factors of hope and uncertainty are almost always present. You have some hope that they might be interested in you romantically, or at least that they like you or are attracted to you, but you cannot find out for sure. That uncertainty also keeps them central in your mind as a prize that you might win if only you could figure out how. Uncertainty keeps you trapped in what I call limerence limbo, where you ruminate and daydream and procrastinate and sort of reason that you don't want to jeopardize anything by taking some hasty action or being too pushy. Instead, unfortunately, you're accidentally deepening the addiction. Okay, so limerence is an altered state of mind, a drive to pair bond, a behavioral addiction, and it's sustained by hope and uncertainty. That gives us plenty to work with and some levers to pull. So a few key principles arise from this analysis. Number one, limerence is happening in your head, so that's where it must be overcome. Number two, it's a natural part of how you experience love, but it can escalate out of control. Number three, your instinctive behavior will reinforce the addiction. And number four, reducing hope and uncertainty will remove some of the fuel that sustains the limerence. Freedom from unwanted limerence therefore requires accepting and embracing those four principles. You need to choose freedom, adopt a recovery mindset, and change your behavior in clever ways that move from reinforcing the limerence to weakening it. And you need to eliminate the sources of hope and uncertainty that are within your control. Sometimes it's useful to think in terms of stories. In fact, stories are an incredibly psychologically powerful way of changing our behavior and of dealing with limerence, because stories communicate directly to the subconscious parts of our brain where limerence lives. So you can devise an intellectual system for recovery that makes perfect sense, but unless you really feel that you can triumph, those dry thoughts are not likely to overcome the limerent drive. Often the stories that we tell ourselves about our limerence are about true love being thwarted or star-crossed lovers, tragic romances about what might have been if the world was different. But the limerence recovery story takes a more heroic form. It's about self-discovery, transformation, renewal. Like any worthwhile quest, limerence recovery can be seen as a descent into the underworld to do battle with dark forces, followed by a victorious return to the light. So you have to equip yourself with knowledge, then go deep into your psyche to face the monsters lurking there, and then re-emerge transformed. Recovery is a path through darkness to a sunlit future. Right, so that's the plan. Time to put it into action. From a starting point of being trapped in unwanted limerence, there are 10 steps to take to reach freedom. Step 1. Understand what limerence is. Even the simple fact of learning that limerence is a specific mental state that some people fall into during the early stages of love can be a powerful step forwards in recovery. So knowing that this is your brain operating in a way that's predictable, that's based on known neuroscience, is often a relief for people. Now, unfortunately, the way our neural systems work means that the drive to form a pair bond can tip over into an unstable state of person addiction. But recognizing that limerence can be understood as a behavioral addiction that arises from foreseeable causes helps us make sense of what we're going through. This isn't a cosmic force beyond your control. It's a personal form of romantic fixation that can be reversed. Step 2. Identify your triggers. Now, your limerent object is special, but they're special because of how you respond to them. Something about them is connecting with something deep within you. And the formative experiences that you had growing up and passing through adolescence will have shaped your romantic preferences and sensitivities, and in a way that you may never fully understand, but you can certainly start to spot some important patterns. So this step is when you start to look for those patterns and face your vulnerabilities. So what is it about your limerent object that triggers limerent excitement for you? Are you drawn towards damsels in distress? Do you feel powerful attraction to authority figures? Is it maybe their wicked smile or their dry sense of humour? Do they make you feel safe? Or perhaps it's darker and you actually want the thrill of forbidden love. We all will have individual triggers for what causes the glimmer of limerent arousal for us. So look back through your romantic life and see if you can identify some of the key triggers that affect you. Step 3. Focus on yourself. The next stage is to use that new knowledge to understand yourself better. So when your limerent object triggers that limerent excitement, how do you respond? Typically, our instinctive behavior usually leads us to seek more limerent reward, naturally enough. More time together, more texting, more social media stalking, more daydreaming. Now, the important insight from this review about your own behavior is that some of it is likely to be contributing to that hope and uncertainty that keeps limerence alive. So that means it's within your control to reverse it. In fact, even more than that, you're the only one who can. So many limerents make the mistake of hoping that other people can solve the problem for them. So if I could just get my limerent object to stop texting me outside of work, I could break the habit. Or if I could just get my husband to be more romantic, I'd be happier at home. Or my limerent objects are leading me on and it's not fair. Now, in reality, it's not practical to try and persuade other people to act in a way that makes it easier for you to resist temptation. It also isn't nearly as effective as dealing with the causes of limerence that you can control yourself. Look to yourself first when it comes to making changes that reduce hope and uncertainty. Step 4. Understand why it feels so good. You have to know what you're up against. Well-established habits are very hard to break, and the drives to seek reward and form pair bonds are incredibly powerful forces. They're very deeply rooted in our biology and psychology. Not many natural highs can compete with limerence for sheer exhilaration and euphoria. Reproduction is about as powerful a motivator as there is from a biological perspective, so it makes sense that finding a potential mate is extraordinarily exciting and rewarding. That also means that there's going to be setbacks and relapses and withdrawal pains as you begin to detach from your limerent object. Your brain is going to start panicking about the loss of this hyper reward that it had fixated on. Now, that needn't be a cause for despair. It is possible to make quick gains in emotional stability and regulation once you embark on the recovery program, but you do need to be aware that it's a big challenge to overcome. It's a big emotional loss to accept. So anticipate the setbacks and relapses when they do arrive. Step 5. Decide to take control. The first 4 steps have really been about mental preparation and analysing the task of breaking free. This 5th step is one of the hardest. You have to decide once and for all that you are going to free yourself. Deciding can be surprisingly difficult. The very origin of the word means to cut off other options. It means killing hope and the end of the limerent dream. Commonly, limerents go through big mood swings where a good interaction with their limerent object can leave them high and happy and positive and hopeful, but a bad interaction leaves them devastated, ashamed, demoralized. In really low moments, like many addicts, the limerent can swear to themselves never again and resolve to finally break their emotional dependence. This 5th deciding step means breaking that connection between the limerent object's behavior and your mood. It means overruling the times when good interactions make you feel hopeful again and focusing on a plan to move beyond the unhealthy highs of person addiction regardless of their behavior. Step 6. Go no contact if you can. With your mind straight and the decision made, it's time to take concrete action. The next step is to reduce access to the source of your addiction. Limit contact with your limerent object. If you can, the best approach is to go fully no contact. That means no meetings in person, but also no indirect contact through texting or social media or any other electronic platforms that can allow you to see them or interact with them. For many limerents, full no contact isn't going to be practical or possible. So sometimes they have to work with their limerent object, or they've developed a friendship that means suddenly cutting them off would cause as many problems as it solves. In those sorts of cases, a staged withdrawal approach is a better bet, where you progressively limit contact over time as far as you can. So look at how much contact you have now, look at how far you could potentially limit that contact to, and then work in stages to get from here to there. Regardless of how quickly you get there, limiting your access to the primary source of reinforcement is an essential step in recovering from any addiction. Step 7. Reprogram your limerent brain. Limerence is an altered state of mind. You accidentally trained yourself into it by following your romantic instincts until the reward-seeking habit had become so strong that it transitioned into person addiction. Now it's time to reverse that process. There are 2 major changes in the brain during addiction. First, the reward system is sensitized. It gets stronger. That creates desperate wanting to an exaggerated extent, an overwhelming desire. And second, the rational part of the brain, the executive part that should be providing feedback to regulate the power of desires, is desensitized, it's weakened. In other words, your mental gas pedal is floored at the same time that the brake is released. Now, you can directly feel this during the addictive phases of limerence, that desperate craving for them, the sensitization of reward, that is very hard to resist because of desensitization of executive control. To recover, you need to start overwriting that program with a new one. You need to deprogram yourself out of limerence. To do this, you need psychological methods for exercising your executive brain, strengthening the feedback control system that should be cutting off the unhealthy desire. At the same time, you also want to spoil the rewards to make that desire weaker. This is a retraining process fundamentally, and it involves playing mind games with yourself and developing anti-rewards that ruin your fantasies. So spoil your happy daydreams, your happy memories, and focus on the negative experiences that you've had with your limerent object and the negative consequences of staying hooked to them. The goal is to train your subconscious to stop seeing your limerent object as a source of reward and comfort and turn them into a source of discomfort. Now, this process of mental retraining is what my emergency deprogramming course covers in detail. So this is a quick advert for those people who are really struggling and need urgent, efficient help in breaking their romantic obsession. So the course is a self-directed, self-paced program that teaches you how to implement this recovery method in the most efficient way. Over 700 people have taken the course successfully and the feedback is great. There's a link in the description below if you want to know more. Okay, let's get back to the 10 steps. Step 8, consider disclosure. Most limerents instinctively keep their limerence secret, and sometimes that's prudent. But if you're single and your limerent object is single and there aren't social or professional barriers in the way, the best way to remove uncertainty is to disclose your feelings to your limerent object and ask them directly if they feel the same way. Now, if they say no, then you at least know for sure that your romantic hope was misplaced and you can now move on, secure in the knowledge that you took decisive action. And that's admirable, even if it's painful. But if a relationship with your limerent object is not possible or desirable, then disclosure to them is a very bad idea. It will likely create a lot of new problems without even really helping with the limerence. After all, you already knew that a relationship with them was never feasible. Your limerent object isn't the only person that you can disclose to, though. You can still use disclosure to remove hope and uncertainty. It's hard to get through limerence recovery alone. Sometimes it's necessary, but it is easier if you have both support and accountability. Disclosing what you're going through to a trusted advisor can be transformative. So this could be a close friend, a therapist, a mentor, maybe even a spouse or long-term partner. Disclosing to a trusted supporter means that you remove the secrecy and deniability from the situation, and you frame your limerence as a problem to be solved rather than a guilty hidden hope. And you gain a champion who can help you through those rough patches and encourage you to stay the course. Step 9, future-proof yourself. Now, as you're working through the recovery steps, you're likely to learn a lot. Don't waste that insight. By better understanding your limerence triggers, by recognizing the kinds of people that cause the glimmer for you, by developing self-awareness about which behaviors are the most powerful reinforcers of your limerence symptoms, you can learn a lot about yourself. Now, most limerents have multiple limerent objects over the course of their lives. Learning to spot the glimmer when it begins allows you to behave differently the next time that it arrives. So instead of instinctively seeking that glimmering person's company, you can adopt a friendly but guarded attitude towards them, at least until you can make a decision about whether they're a good prospect for a romantic relationship. Now, if not, you're best advised to avoid them at that early stage. It's a lot easier to not start an infatuation than it is to reverse it once you're fully captured. Oh yeah, and don't try to just be friends with them. We all know where that will lead. Step 10, build a purposeful life. The final step of the recovery plan is the most important for success. All that self-analysis and mindset shifting and mental reprogramming and finding accountability partners is useful and necessary, but it can be demoralizing work. Limerence, after all, offers big thrills and romantic promise, even if the hope is a misguided fantasy. You have to have something to replace that unhealthy source of reward with something good, a healthy source of reward. You have to have a vision of the future that inspires you to want to free yourself. Now, you've probably noticed that a lot of this recovery plan is actually about understanding yourself. Yes, there are ways to disrupt the habits of limerence and get out of that altered state of mind, but lasting recovery means something more profound. The actual plan is more ambitious than just solving the limerence problem. It's using it as a force for transformation, to renew your life, to build something wonderful out of what can be a disruptive and painful experience, to secure some lasting good from your romantic hardship. Personal development is one of the few experiences in life that compares to the epic scale of limerence because it offers the same promise of a transformed life. Romantic connection is a pillar of a good life, but there are many more. Health, wealth, friendships, family, travel, education, art, entertainment. It's a long list. Purposeful living is about using all of those pillars to create a better foundation for your life. Living with purpose essentially means making choices that are intentional and will move you closer towards your vision of a better future. Because if you simply drift through life, you're going to be much more vulnerable to the emotional turmoil of limerence when it arrives. Purposeful living, in contrast, improves your life immediately, and it equips you to respond to the arrival of a new limerent object in a more thoughtful and empowered way. Finally, purposeful living is about happiness, real lasting joy that comes from a sense of meaning and fulfillment and satisfaction that you get from building a better life. That beats the sugar rush of limerent pleasure every time. Now, as you've watched all the way to the end of this rather long video, I'm going to assume that these ideas resonate with you and that you're highly motivated to solve your limerence problem. But you may still have some questions. How do I cope with the emotional pain? How do I find purpose? And did you really say that I should consider telling my long-term partner that I'm limerent for someone else? Well, these are all natural questions and there are answers. So even with this long explanation of the recovery process and the principles, I've inevitably skipped over some important details. Now, if you're ready to get started on putting your own plan into action and you want more information and guidance, head over to livingwithlimerence.com. There's a wealth of resources over there. Okay, that is it. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe if you'd like more. I wish you luck in your own battles to overcome limerence, and I'll see you next time.